Louise Françoise, a self-absorbed bullet mage at Tristain Academy, struggles with magic, earning the nickname Louise the Zero. However, during a summoning ritual, her failed attempt causes an explosion. But instead of nothing, a boy named Saito from another world appears. Forced to serve as her familiar, Saito's mysterious hand mark suggests he may be far more powerful than anyone expected. Welcome to the magical world of Halkagenia, where the Tristain Academy for Magicians teaches the art of magic. On her first day as a second-year student, Louise de la Valliere gets ready for school, wearing a cute school uniform, where the teacher introduces herself to the class as Chevreuse the Red Moon, and her attribute element is Earth. Furthermore, she will be teaching them Earth magic for the coming year. The students, like in every school, are busy in their own stuff, ignoring everything she says. However, the scenario changes when she asks the class a question. Miss Chevreuse brings out the stones to demonstrate something incredible, and just as we expected, she turns the ordinary pebbles into brass, which astonishes everyone. Following that, she chooses Louise to try this simple spell and change pebbles into a metal of her choice. The students voice their reservations, but the teacher, unaware of Louise's precedence, insists that she must perform the spell. And just when the pervert principal thinks that this year has rather begun calmly, they hear a loud blast which ruins the naughty mood of the old geezer. He has to divert his attention from his secretary to this nuisance. Louise's spell turns the entire class upside down. Unfortunately, despite hailing from a famous magician family, Louise has a 0% success rate for casting spells, which earns her the nickname Louise the Zero from her peers. The teacher must be regretting her choice to give this girl a chance. On her way back from the office, students mock Louise for her worst magic abilities, and the fuming Louise in response challenges them for the summoning ritual. But deep within Louise, a realization gnaws at her core, acknowledging that she has made a commitment that surpasses her current abilities. A sense of regret washes over her as she recognizes that she should never have challenged herself to such daunting heights. Things take a turn for the worse during the familiar summoning ceremony, when Louise's classmates Kirch and Gitch successfully summon a fire salamander and a large mole, respectively. As Louise's turn, things go haywire, and she accidentally summons a human being who cannot understand her language. Everyone gets shocked to see a live human being summoned, although he is a peasant with no brains. She wants to try again, but the administrator forbids her, as it is a blasphemy for the ritual itself. This guy is already chosen as a familiar for the rest of her life. Disappointed but unable to break the ritual's tradition, Louise makes a contract with Saito by kissing him, which causes runes to appear on his left hand. Saito's mind reels with shock as he finds himself standing before humans dressed in unfamiliar attire. Confusion grips him as he tries to comprehend the sight before him, unable to discern the meaning. Saito initially thinks he's been kidnapped, but unfortunately, he has been entrapped in even more complex scenarios. Saito opens his eyes in Louise's room. She orders her familiar to work for her, else she will not feed him, causing them to get into more of a one-sided. He tries to put up a fight, and he immediately gets silenced to see her getting undressed right in front of him. Louise tries to silence him with a silencing spell, but it backfires, and Saito can suddenly understand and speak Louise's language. She tells her about the kingdom and the summoning stuff, which is actually the reason behind his appearance here. Suddenly, as she turns to the wall, Saito sneaks from the room. He aspires to escape the building and find a way back to his home. On the other hand, Louise is tracking him so she can put him on a leash. Lord Gitch has joined her too in capturing that escaping peasant, and he finally gets him using his aerial magic. The big bosom girl doesn't let this chance go away to troll her fellow, and laughs hysterically by pointing out that a familiar is running from the master. He fails miserably in this attempt, and gets shocked to discover he's been transported to another world when he sees the two moons in the sky. Back in Japan, Saito was strolling through the streets when came across a weird-looking portal and impulsively touched it. Upon touching the entrance, it dragged Saito inside, and within a blink of an eye, he found himself trapped in the weird-looking world. As Saito wakes up the next morning, he feels the sting of the whip on his back and chains to restrict him, reminding him of his servitude to Louise as a familiar. But he doesn't let it dampen his spirits, for today is a new day, and who knows what adventure or danger it might bring. Well. The new day starts with Louise taking down her clothes in front of him again, making him lose his mess again. Saito provides her with the clothes she asked him to wash and pleads with Louise to release him from the chains. She is ready to do that on a condition that he needs to dress her, and if he doesn't follow her command, he will be deprived of the meals. First day is always tough in the office. After that, they head to breakfast, which is nothing less than a wedding feast. and the otherworldly boy gets impressed to see all these lavish items on table. However, it soon changes into disappointment because this meal is for nobles and not peasants. Also, Saito notices the meager amount of food Louise offers him, a mere piece of bread, while she feasts on a lavish spread fit for a queen. Louise takes Saito to the place where all second-year students are playing with their familiars on their off day, and needs to communicate with each other. Right there, Kirch flexes her big assets and her familiar to Saito, while making sure to demean Louise the Zero in this flexing. However, his attention is soon diverted by a maid with an accidental encounter, who offers him a warm smile. She tells Saito about the world he is entrapped in and the principles of living defined for nobles and peasants. Those who can use magic are nobles and the rest are peasants who are meant to serve the nobles. Saito, who always rebels against the arrogance of nobles, and is quick to mock Gitch's two-timing nature. He exposes the playboy nature of this noble in front of the whole class, which creates a scene in this party. This doesn't sit well with the noble. The girls humiliate Gitch in front of the entire class. Agonized by his humiliation, he challenges Saito to a duel. Shockingly, Saito accepts the challenge and decides to meet up with him at the given venue. Louise warns him about the consequences and tries to brush off his familiar from the sight, but Saito is adamant about teaching a lesson to the arrogant noble. Unlike her classmates, her familiar is not in her control. She is regretting every bit of this summoning as she knows what's coming next for her. Meanwhile, Jean Colbert, who is the administrator in the summoning ritual, has been researching the meaning of words engraved on Sato's hand, and the results baffle him, so he could not stop himself from immediately approaching the principal. The expressions on the principal's face depict the gravity of the matter as he instructs the professor to keep the matter to himself only. He even makes her secretary leave the office so she can't have any idea about the rune that appeared on the hand of this peasant familiar. Saito has less than 0% chance of winning against a noble, but still he makes his way to the square for a face-off. At this point, I have no idea why this knucklehead chooses to fight when he has nothing. Louise tries her best to solve the matter, but it looks like Gitch wants to take revenge for the humiliation. The noble brings out a brass golem Valkyrie to teach this little peasant a lesson. Despite being severely beaten by Gitch's summoned brass golem, Saito refuses to back down. The blonde even gives him an option to apologize so that they can drop this matter right here, but ego has already shunted the brain of Saito, and he is not going to swallow it. In the office, the old Osman reveals that this rune is actually a legendary thing, linking its history with one of the lost corners of the Pentagon. Impressed by Sato's bravery, Gitch tosses him a sword to even the playing field. He ignores the pleading and orders of his master and picks up the sword, as he has made up his mind that he is at least not going to bow his head to a noble like him, because it is the matter of his survival here. As soon as he picks up the sword, the runes on Sato's hand begin to glow, and the whole class cheers for him. Surprisingly, the pain goes away and it enhances his strength and speed, Ultima giving him sword skills he never knew he had. He takes down the first brass golem with a single swing, shocking everyone around. With a few swift strikes, he takes down multiple golems at once and knocks Gitch down. Saito defeats Gitch in a stunning manner, making him yield in front of everyone. The Lord can't believe that something like this can even happen, as he was so full of his superiority complex regarding nobles being the bestest. On the other hand, Sato's triumph is short-lived, as he collapses from fatigue as soon as he takes his hand off the sword, and the toll of the battle turns heavy on him as he falls on the ground, losing consciousness. Mr. Colbert and Headmaster Osman begin to suspect that Saito may be a legendary familiar, with his victory over Gitch being the latest in a series of remarkable feats. Saito wakes up after 3 days and 3 nights of unconsciousness, and the maid reveals that Louise has been diligently tending to him during his incapacitated state. A mix of emotions surges within him. Trembling with gratitude, he casts a glance at Louise, who sleeps nearby, looking utterly exhausted from her unwavering dedication to his well-being. The twist in the tale, and I bet from here on things are going to take a turn for Saito and Louise. As a consequence of Sato's 3-day illness, Louise hands him heaps of laundry to wash, and when Saito does not complete the task in time, Louise rebukes Saito. However, the helpless boy doesn't argue with her, considering she looked after her for 3 days straight. He is really moved by her care, but she destroys his feelings by telling him that it was just a master-slave stuff, and there was no particular depth to it. A poor boy is having a hard time dealing with this little mess. Following that, he is looking at the other familiars, which all are beasts, or some creatures, making him regret that he is a part of this flock despite being a human. Suddenly, Louise pinches his ear and asks him to escort her to the class quickly after washing the clothes. Kirch is looking at this scene from a distance, and it is evident that she is getting fond of our cute boy. The scene changes and now we are in the classroom led by the same earth element teacher. Today's lecture is about combining the elements to create a stronger magic. Seeing the opportunity, the hottie makes a pun about someone who can't even use a single element, diverting everyone's attention to a single girl, and that is our Louise. This is the moment when Saito realizes why her entire class calls Louise Zero. As they walk off the class, Saito mocks Louise with a song, entailing lyrics which humiliate Louise for her inabilities. Anguished by her insult, Louise punishes him with no meals for every zero he mentioned. Well, she has zero sense of humor too, and now this poor lad has to pay for his silly mocking. Saito is breaking down with an empty stomach, so he tries to butter her up, which actually works, as she accepts her apology and is down to give him a meal for the night. However, things take a turn when Saito mentions her breast being size 0 too. For Louise, this is even worse than having no magic skills, so she decides to make him sleep out of the room in addition to no food. This is the reason one should not let his tongue slip. In the corridor, Siesta finds Saito shivering in the cold outside the room and takes him to the kitchen, where all the other peasants applaud Saito for his win over the noble. He is served delicious food, and Saito has become quite popular among the commoners, who now refer to him as our sword. They are proud of his accomplishment against that snobby noble. The head chef starts acting weird and tries to kiss him, but he pushes him away, making the scene really awkward. After the meal is done, Siesta reveals that while Saito was on the verge of being dragged into a coma, Louise went on to buy one of the most expensive elixirs for him, which saved his life. Siesta invites Saito for lunch so they can have a long chat peacefully, and Saito happily accepts her offer. He is in all awe for her kindness. Things only got worse when a noble from Germania, Kirch, selects Saito to be her next boyfriend as part of a devious plan. She uses her salamander to kidnap him and bring him to her suite. She tries to seduce him with her good figure and flirting skills, and is about to kiss Saito when her current boyfriend, who goes by the name of Styx, shows up. However, she shuts him down, but it looks like she is a whore as one guy after another starts showing up at her window, demanding her to burn them with her love. But she is only interested in this peasant, so she gets over him, rubbing his big melons on his chest. Lucky Lad seems to be falling for her figure and they kiss erotically. Just then, Louise jumps in, ruining fun for everyone. You nerds also take your hands out of your pants. She bursts out at Saito for his unwavering attraction to her body, punishing him with a crop that is used to spank horses. She is taking out her frustration, hitting him over and over again. Saito uses force to stop her and accuses Louise of being jealous of Kirch because he chose her over Lois. Anyways, she clears out that her problem is actually a family problem. The Zerbst and her family are always on the edge of sword, so she can't tolerate her familiar to have any kind of relationship with a Zerbst whore. After considering Sato's hidden talent with a sword, Louise drags him to town to buy him one. Kirch approaches Tabetha and requests her to follow Louise and Saito, who just left on a horse. Tabetha uses her mythical familiar to chase after a couple on the horse. Upon Loise's demand for a thicker and bigger sword, the shopkeeper pulls out his most exquisite item. It's the sword from the famous alchemist mage hailing from Germania. But Louise fails to buy a sword of 3,000 gold coins and they have to settle for a rusty-looking sword. The noble was poorer than we thought, as she had only 100 coins in her pocket. Kirch, on the other hand, has been spying on them in town. She purchases the expensive sword of Germania for mere 500 coins by seducing the shopkeeper with his good physique, boasting her assets with pride to make him fall for it. Saito absolutely loved this sword, as it was 1,000,000 times better than the rusted old one. Third gift surges her conflict with Louise, while Saito accepts both gifts to ease the situation. It is then that Sato's sword revealed itself to be the talking sword, Derflinger, which impresses him a lot, so he decides to take this rusty sword. The dawn breaks with a hefty workload for the principal. Count Mott brings the intimation letter from the royal palace, informing Osman about Fauke the sculptor, who is in search of a treasure kept in the school, the Staff of Destruction. This thief is using his magic to steal treasures of the nobles. In response, Osman ensures his diligent obedience to the royal instructions, and he is pretty confident about his security in place because it is protected by layers of magic from square-class mages. Meanwhile, Headmaster Osman continues to harass the secretary, who is clearly not the one you can continue messing with. Siesta helps out naive familiar Saito. She teaches him how to wash the silk clothing. The conversation goes on and they share a bit of feelings towards each other. On his way back to the room, Kirch lures him to his room to give him the exquisite sword she bought for him for free. Well, there is a saying that nothing comes free in this world. Although Saito is hesitant to go in the room with her, he is still overwhelmed by the sword. Kirch is all eyes on Saito, ready to test the springs at any moment. Saito wonders why a woman who has so many men falling for her looks is persistent to sleep with a mere familiar. However, displeased by her remarks about his appearance, begins striding toward the exit. Kirch persuades Saito for one after another gift, be it her remarkable breast or some infamous magic item, but Saito cares a little about her offerings. Suddenly, Louise opens the door with a bang looking for Saito and rescues him from Kirch's lust, saving his virginity for another day. After heading into the room, he gets scolded by his lady master for getting hunted by Kirch so easily, so she beats him again with the cane. The next day, Saito ends up in the kitchen while wandering in the school. He inquires about Siesta from the head chef, and he informs that she has been forced into the service of Count Maud as his mistress. Disgusted by the noble's lack of regard for commoners, Saito decides to bring her back. Saito joins hands with Gitch to make his way to the mansion, but he is caught by the guards who produce him before the Count, who's trying to have a good time with her new mistress. He listens to Sato's plea and his valor to do anything in return for him. So, in return for sparing his and Siesta's life, the Count asks for a particular family heirloom book from a Germania family. As the Count elaborates on the attributes and significance of the book and its belongings, Saito is struck by a sudden realization, concluding that the book may indeed belong to Kirch. In a rush of determination, Saito swiftly decides to make his way back to the academy. He comes across Louise riding on the horse to save his ass. He jumps on the horse and heads back to the institute with her. She tells him to forget about Siesta, as she is now a servant of the royal stature. After she sleeps, Saito sneaks out, making his way to Kirch's room. He asks Kirch for the book, which she is willing to hand over since she is not much into reading, but she demands that he must sleep with her first. Lucky you. However, gutted by the common attitude of nobles milking the peasants, he refuses to fulfill her demands and slams the door in wrath. Saito gets on the horse and heads to the palace in order to take on Count Maud on his own with Kirch's expensive sword. Our peasant boy sneaks in the establishment but eventually gets caught by the guards and magical hounds. He pulls out the sword, challenging the Count, but unlike his previous experience, his runes do not activate as it is an ornamental sword not meant for combat. He struggles to even lift it. In response to his insolent behavior, the Count gives him some beatings with his magic. Louise and the others arrive just in time to prevent Saito from being executed. Louise immediately apologizes to the Mott for her familiar's behavior, agreeing to accept any kind of punishment on his behalf. Kirch agreed to give Count Mott the book in exchange for Siesta's freedom and for Sato's offense to be forgiven. Saito catches a glimpse of the heirloom book and he is surprised to find that it is just an old sneezy magazine from Japan. Anybody who cares, as they are unable to understand it, as it was summoned from the other world. And Count Mott also doesn't care about it because he was just interested in acquiring this book. He gets satisfied and orders his guards to hand over Siesta to them. On their return to the academy, Siesta thanks Saito for risking his life. She kisses Saito on the cheek and immediately runs back. After that, he heads to meet Louise in the stable, but she's not ready to have any conversation with him, as she is really mad at him for all this nuisance, thinking about the right punishment for his behavior. She has plenty of harsh punishments in her mind to make him pay for this foolish stuff, and listing them is enough to make Saito lose his mess. He argues with her to take pity on him, but she is stubborn, inclined to punish him for his Robin Hood attitude. It would be a bad day at the office for the exotic man. The night is dark with two moons in different phases shining brightly in the sky. In this brim light, a lady with green hair and a cloak enters the premises of school. This lady is not your average student, as she uses a spatial magic to transport herself in the building using a portal. She vanishes in thin air as if she never existed at that spot. Are you serious? The thief has struck, taking away the jewels that were secured in a treasure box. The next morning, a tussle is going on in Louise's suite as she is anxiously scolding his slave for his poor display of speech, ethics, and mannerisms. In the recent chaos, Louise had almost forgotten the forthcoming exhibition, where all the second-year students will be displaying the skills of their familiars. And now, the exhibition of new familiars is only a day away, and Louise is feeling rather depressed about it. On the contrary, Saito doesn't care about this mess and is cracking jokes about his panty washing skills. The already depressed Louise can't stop herself from unsheathing the whips on Saito when he mocks her by proposing to display her panties in the exhibition. Though she is worried for all the right reasons, not only does Saito have nothing impressive to show, but this year, the Princess of Tristain is also present, making the event even more important. Suddenly, she gets an idea to display his sword skills, but good-for-nothing guy tells him that he was unable to even pick up the sword properly at the Count's mansion. Anyways, he decides to give it another try, swinging his talking sword in the ground. but nothing magical is happening for him. Finally, he gives up, and right then Siesta comes there, which makes him blush. She tells him about Lady Henrietta, which might be the princess that we talked earlier about. In the principal office, the secretary is informing the headmaster about the preparations, but this old geezer is more interested in taking a peek at her panties with his spying mouse. All the students are sharpening the skills of their familiars to impress the princess. The entire second-year class is preparing for the exhibition with zeal except for Louise and Saito. On the other hand, Longueville probes Professor Colbert on the thought behind moving the guards from the treasure to the gate, to which Colbert responds that the limitation of having enough number of guards is the reason behind moving them. Moreover, he is confident that the sculptor will not dare roam around the academy in presence of the princess and so many guards on the premises. He is chill about leaving the treasure room unguarded, because even triangle-level mages don't stand a chance against this door. The day has arrived when the princess will bless everyone's eyes. Everyone is in awe of the mesmerizing beauty of the princess, who gracefully greets the hosts. In the night, a visitor to Louise's room turns out to be Princess Henrietta, her childhood friend. Both friends hug each other, remembering their beautiful childhood memories together. The princess informs her that she was longing to meet her so badly after the death of his father, as she had no one to open up her heart. The princess reveals that she saved Louise and her courageous familiar from the legal actions against them after the incident at Count Mott's place. They talk about a lot of things, making each other cry. The next day, as expected, the audience burst into laughter at Sato's poor sword skills demonstration. They become a laughing stock for everyone. Both Louise and her familiar leave the exhibition and head back to their room to save themselves from further embarrassment. While everyone is busy in the ceremony, Fauke the sculptor tries to break into the vault but fails. After that, she tries to break into the school's treasure vault using her ferocious golem. But it's a disappointment again, as the vault is way too strong. The arguing duo arrives at the point of infiltration, baffling the thief, so she launches an attack on these two using her golem. Louise tries to stop her with her magic, but almost hits Saito with her missed shot. Well, this missed shot turns out to be a blessing for the thief because the attack weakens the wall. It allows the Fauke to rupture it further using the power of her golem. She successfully steals the fabled Staff of Destruction and escapes from there, thanking Louise for her help. She throws Saito from height, who eventually gets saved by Tabitha's familiar. The thief leaves a note on the walls of the vault, mocking the headmaster. The investigation team tries to find the thief but is unable to find any trace of the thief. The way Fauke had been using the golem, Louise is certain that she is nothing short of a triangle mage, while Saito is glad that both of them survived this. Right then, the princess comes rushing in and gets happy to see that her friend is safe and sound. She tells Louise that it was not her fault, so she doesn't need to feel sad about it. The royal palace will look into this matter. After that, she takes her leave, wishing to see her dear friend in near future again. The next morning, Kirch is having a good time with Saito as she is feeding him the most exotic fruits of Germania. Meanwhile, Louise is getting irritated to see this stupid thing happening in front of her. She tries to control herself, but she erupts eventually, yelling at her classmate that it is inappropriate to feed someone else's familiar. At this point, Kirch reveals that Princess Henrietta is blamed for the unfortunate incident, because the security needed to be taken off from the vault due to her. On top of that, there have been rumors that the princess visited the institute despite warnings from her advisors, which puts her in a really bad spot in this case. A staff member barges in the classroom, asking Louise and Tabitha to make their way to the principal's office. Headmaster Osmond calls for these eyewitnesses of the incident, but surprisingly Kirch joins them too, although she wasn't anywhere near the incident. Longueville briefs everyone about the investigation details, starting with the sketch of a shadow that has been seen entering and leaving the forest. She hands over the sketch to old Osmond, which she prepared after analyzing the testimonies of everyone. In her first glance at the sketch, Louise identifies the girl as Fauke, which creates chaos in the room. Mr. Colbert suggests that they should inform the palace about this, but Osmond rejects the proposal of asking the bureaucracy for help. He opines that red tapeism of the bureaucracy will result in unnecessary delays, and they must bring the stolen Staff of Destruction on their own. He weighs on regaining the credibility and honor of the institute, which has been tarnished by the thief. When all the well-learned teachers step back from fighting, Louise volunteers to go catch her, along with Kirch and Tabitha. Old Geezer gets impressed by their passion, plus he is satisfied because Tabitha is joining them, who is actually a knight at this young age. At this point, I have started to suspect Miss Longueville, as she is acting quite sus. They travel to the place of Fauke's last sighting, escorted by Longueville. On their way to a shabby-looking house, Saito asks a genuine question about the possibility of Fauke being a noble as she is a mage. However, Longueville reveals that Fauke is no more a noble but rather a demoted peasant. She opines that not everyone is born a peasant, but some nobles are demoted to peasants for their acts, and Fauke is one of them. Here comes a twist, as Miss Longueville confesses that she is also a demoted noble, which shocks everyone, which forces them to ask some weird questions from the secretary. The topic soon diverts, transitioning into a cat fight between Louise and Kirch over Saito. Kirch is giving a tough time to our boy, luring him in with expensive stuff like the sword and her bazookas. All of them reach the whereabouts of the Fauke in the middle of nowhere. They send Saito to take a look around and waits for a signal from him. Saito takes a good look around and then signals them to enter the empty house. Louise stands guard outside while Miss Longueville offers to scout the area around. Tabitha, Saito and Kirch enter the house, where after a bit of searching Tabitha discovers the hidden staff of destruction in a wooden box at the corner. They are about to check the inside of the box when Fauke's golem appears outside. Kirch and Tabitha fight with their powerful spells of air and fire, but it does not affect the golem at all, as it continues to rattle the surroundings. Louise wants to make her name, and she aspires to defeat the golem and wash away all the humiliations of her classmates, but she fails. Saito rushes in to save her from the punch of golem, and hardly manages to get out of it. Oh my god, he slaps her for pulling off this stunt, making her cry over the fact that she is useless and everyone makes fun of her. After handing her over to Tabitha, he heads towards the golem using exotic sword from Germania, which breaks as soon as it gets in contact with the golem. At this point, the talking swords wake up, ordering him to draw it out. He immediately takes it out and the runes on his hand glow again, making him feel lighter and faster. He's able to slash the golem's legs, but they reform themselves. Louise tries to help using the Staff of Destruction, which Saito realizes is an M72 rocket launcher. With his rune-enabled abilities, he fires at the golem and destroys it. In the aftermath of the incident, Miss Longueville makes a shocking revelation. She is Fauke the sculptor who has been disguising herself as the secretary in perusal of her mission. She engineered the scenario to discover how to use the staff. She knew that only Saito can operate the Staff of Destruction. Longueville aims for the rocket launcher to eliminate them all in a single go, but she is unaware of the Earth's weapons. She tries to fire it, but the rocket launcher turns out to be a single-use weapon. Saito seizes the opportunity and knocks Fauke out, saving everyone. Later, Osman applauds the commendable display of courage by the students, and the students may receive official gifts for their courageous fight. However, Saito, the true hero of the incident, will receive nothing in return for his fight because he is a mere peasant. Anyways, Saito doesn't care about it and asks for something else in return. The thing he wants is information about the rocket launcher. Osman reveals that found the Earth's weapon about 30 years ago. At that time, he was fighting a monster when a man from another world, dressed in a weird uniform, saved him. Moreover, the man had serious wounds and he couldn't recover from those injuries, so he had no chance to have a chat with him. He used one of his 2 staffs to save his life. After the man died, Osman buried him and kept the remaining staff. The school holds a ball to celebrate this achievement and Louise asks Saito to dance and thanks him for saving her. She finally believes that he is from another world, and he finally accepts that he is her familiar. We are at the palace, where the master familiar duo is visiting the princess. Henrietta congratulates Louise for capturing Fauke and gives her the title of Chevalier, as she is proud of her friend's achievement. She thanks Saito too and offers her hand to Saito. However, Louise is not comfortable with the princess offering her hand to the peasant. Louise asks Saito to step ahead and kiss Princess's hand, but he misunderstands everything and kisses her on the lips after due hesitation. This unexpected action takes both best friends by surprise, while the princess loses her consciousness over it. Agonized by the embarrassment caused by her familiarity, Louise pleads for mercy and beats Saito for his insolent behavior. She forces him to apologize to her, but he blames her for being unclear about her instructions, which can be misleading for a commoner like him. However, Princess is a gentle being who easily forgives Saito, terming this action as a reward for his service. Following that, she asks for a favor from them, requesting Louise and Saito to spend some days in the nearby village and work undercover to determine if nobles are taking advantage of the commoners. Initially, the princess herself thought of such news as mere rumors, but the incident of Count Mott has made her conduct a thorough investigation of the matter. Therefore, she needs her most trusted ones to unveil the truth behind these rumors. In the village, both Louise and Saito dress up as commoners and stroll through the streets looking for a horse and a hotel to stay. However, their budget does not allow them to afford a horse and a place equivalent to Louise's status. On top of that, Louise naively loses all of their money in a casino where she was hoping to increase their funds. She is single-handedly responsible for blowing up all the money, as Saito was not there to help her. Saito advises her to ask for more money from the princess, but Louise is not ready to do that, because she believes that it is a personal favor and it is not easy to come up with this much funds. They are arguing over it when they come across a dancing man in a weird outfit. Saito and Louise Louise find work at a tavern called Charming Fairy Inn run by Scarin and his daughter Jessica. Louise works as a waitress, dressed more like other exhibitionists of Scarin, called fairies, and Saito works as a dishwasher where he's in close contact with Jessica, much to Louise's displeasure. No wonder the jealousy is valid, as Jessica is really a candy to the eyes. Scarin holds a contest for the waitresses. There is a competition among the girls of the inn on whoever gets the most tips gets a large reward plus the chance to wear a special made outfit, which is the heirloom of their namesake, the enchanting fairy bustier. The outfit is enchanted with magic that charms people, giving that person a chance to earn them a huge number of tips in return too. In the past, the girls have greatly benefited from this dress. This causes a lot of tension between the waitresses, and Louise feels pressured to participate, despite her lack of experience. But Louise is a noble who cannot endure the flirty attitude of the peasants towards her. She continues to smash the guests one after another whoever tries to harass her. She is already messed up with this job, but Saito tries to calm her down, stating that they have no option other than this. They got a place to sleep and free food to eat. On the other hand, a sound bonding is developing between Jessica and Saito. Louise glares at them in wrath when she hears them bursting into waves of laughter. Saito is having a great time with her, focusing fully on her big breasts, which is making Louise more insecure. In the room, Jessica reveals that she is aware of the fact that both Saito and Louise are not brother and sister. Moreover, Louise is rather a noble disguised as a commoner. She lures Saito with her body, offering to teach him some naughty stuff in exchange for spitting out the secret, but suddenly Louise enters the room and spoils the fun. Saito tries to cover it up, but she kicks her in the nuts to shut his senses. After a heated argument between the girls regarding the poor performance and small breasts, Louise drags Saito out of the room, regretting over her luck in this scenario. On the last day of competition, a noble tax collector, who goes by the name of Cheline, enters the inn with a number of guards. When Scarin tries to explain that inn is already to its capacity, the noble coercively empties the inn, using the force. He sits at the table, mocking the owner for it being empty. Meanwhile, Jessica informs Saito about the fat guy that collects levy, and they can't stand up to him. Plus, he doesn't pay tips or anything after having everything. All of the girls run away from there as they don't want to serve this man. Surprisingly, someone approaches the table. Apparently it is Louise, as she wants to win over this noble to win the day. However, the fatty is not interested in her, cracking a joke that Scaroon has started to employ men here. He stoops down to take a closer look at her breasts to find out the exact size of it. Well, this is not happening, and as expected, Louise smashes him and kicks him in the face. He is infuriated now and tries to hit Louise but gets challenged by Saito, who has forgotten his sword in the room. After the pathetic display of bravery, the guards rush to take them on. Finally, we found someone that is smart, and this someone is Louise, who had been carrying her wand in case there would be an emergency. She pulls out the authority letter from the princess, which shocks everyone in the room. The noble pleads for mercy, leaves a heft of wealth in return for his rudeness. Louise asks him to not speak of this incident or never come back to this place if he wants to stay a noble. After that, he runs away with his guards from there. This is how the duo saves the business of tavern. All the girls decide to make her the winner for getting dozens of coin bags from the noble. Back in the room, Louise wears the maid outfit, which takes Saito by surprise, and he is at a loss of words to describe the beauty of Louise. A mysterious individual arrives in the royal prison to rescue Fauke the sculptor, whose actual name is Matilda of South Gotha. Saito and Louise head back to the academy, which appears quieter than usual. The pervert Saito is touching her at weird places, which spoils her mood. Louise maintains that summer vacations have begun, and the students are buzzing with excitement as they plan their travels or head back to their homes. They come across Kirch and Tabitha, who are getting in the carriage. They are surprised to see Louise still here, as they thought that she had already left. Kirch decides to accompany Tabitha on her journey back home as she hugs Saito passionately, burying her deep in her jugs before she departs. Such a lucky bastard this guy is. On their way, Kirch reveals how she ran off from her home country when her family forced Kirch into a marriage with some old man, only because she used to have fun. They made her quit her school and decided to marry her to save their image. Suddenly, their carriage stops and a farmer informs them about the problem ahead. They are compelled to change the road because of water overflow in the nearby lake lately, which has submerged an entire town. At the school, Louise is back to her unkind nature, putting an extensive workload on poor Saito with an unkind tone. Anyways, Saito goes out of the room to do laundry, leaving her to burn in the flames of jealousy. In the lawn, he comes across Gitch and Montmorency, who are fighting like your average couple over the usual stuff. Suddenly, Sato's eyes fall on a huge metal pot by the side of the wall. He gets an idea and he lends that huge metal pot from the head chef and takes it behind the bushes by the wall. The sword questions his intentions about it, but he asks him to wait for the night with a wicked smile. On the flip side, Kirch trembles with shock when she comes to know that Tabitha belongs to the royal family of Gallia. Kirch learns that Tabitha's real name is Charlotte, and she is the princess of Gallia. The butler serves Kirch the tea and takes care of her while her friend makes her way out of the room. Tabitha must be on her way to meet with her family members, so she ends up at the door of her room. She knocks and gets in the room, making her way to the sofa by the window. This is Tabitha's mother, who is looking sick and starts acting weirdly on seeing her. In the living room, Kirch is curious about the reason behind hiding the identity and running away to study abroad, so she asks the butler about it. He starts telling her about the history of Orleans, mentioning that after Tabitha's grandfather passed away, her uncle began a fight for the throne and conspired with her father's murder. Charlotte's father was more talented and adept for the throne, but he was second in line. The whole palace was divided in two, with everyone taking their sides. In the midst of that battle, Prince Orleans was murdered by a conspiracy, taking an arrow in his heart. After they were done with this, they decided to go after Charlotte, so they made a plan and invited Orleans' wife and daughter to a banquet. Tabitha's mother tragically went insane after drinking a potion, leaving a scar on Tabitha's past. The lady actually sacrificed herself to save her daughter because she got a hint that there is something mixed in the drink. The made-up name is actually the name of the cute doll that her mother gave to her daughter. Since that incident, nobody has tried to take the life of the mistress, rather used her magical powers to their advantage, assigning her to most difficult tasks. The reason for her returning home is to fulfill a mission from her uncle, the King of Gallia. Back at the academy, the night has arrived, and Saito is taking a hot tub bath in the huge pot, so this is what he planned in the morning. He is loving it a lot. Just then, Siesta happens to pass by. She notices this huge pot in the ground, so she gets there to take a look, and gets scared to see our boy coming out of the hot boiling water. After a little conversation, she decides to join him too, taking off her clothes in front of Saito. Moving to the lovebirds, things are heating up as Montmorency discovers Gitch's infidelity. In a fit of jealousy, she decides to whip up a love potion called Aphrodisiac and slips it into Gitch's drink. While strolls around the lawn, looking for Saito, and she turns up on her head when Louise finds him taking a bath with Siesta. In the mixed emotions of jealousy and deceit, she interrupts the conversation of Gitch, and Montmorency accidentally drinks the love potion. In the pot, Siesta inquires Saito about his country Japan, and shocks to hear that there is a single moon in his country and there are no concepts of nobles and peasants. One gets to live his life fully to his choice. Siesta reveals that her grandfather also used to say that he does not belong to this place and came all the way from skies. When Saito returns to his room, he is met with a completely infatuated Louise. She falls head over heels for him. Saito is absolutely baffled by this drastic transition in her behavior. This is when Montmorency utters the truth behind her drastic change. Meanwhile, Kirch is doing her best to comfort her friend and make sure that she feels safe at her home. Things have taken a turn for the strange reasons as Louise continues her lovey-dovey behavior towards Saito. She is not even letting him get out of her sight, as she fears that he will get involved with some random girls. Saito is desperate for a solution and demands that Montmorency create an antidote to the love potion. Montmorency maintains that the potion was originally meant for Gitch, but Louise drank it without listening to her. However, she opines that the effect of the potion will go on its own and Saito must wait and bear her changed emotions for a while. Well, the effects will take around a month to fade, so he has a mountain to climb. On the other hand, Loyus's growing clinginess is also causing troubles between Saito and Siesta. Siesta is rightly not pleased with their growing closeness and steps back. Saito is putting in efforts to make her understand, so he explains everything to her about the love potion. However, she calls it a white lie and gets away from there. A love triangle has been initiated. In the room, Louise is lying on the floor in her nightie. She desires to do it with Saito, but he abstains from lovemaking. Louise strives to seduce Saito by exposing her body. She believes Saito has been swirling around other women because of lack of looking appeal. Being a guy, I will support him in doing that too. Anyways, Saito asserts that he needs to find the solution at the earliest. But Montmorency refuses to help until Saito pulls out some leverage, blackmailing her into helping him out. He is really bent upon doing anything to get Louise back to normal. Unfortunately, the antidote requires a very rare and unusual ingredient, the tear of a water spirit. This is found in the Lake Lagdorian. When Montmorency hesitates to bring the antidotes, Saito reiterates his warning. They finally get on the same page, deciding to go to retrieve that ingredient tomorrow. The sun has set, and the impact of love potion is increasing. It is forcing Louise to sleep with Saito, making him uncomfortable. In the morning, all of them leave towards the lake by the border of Gallia. It is going to be a long journey and will take them a half day to get there. Everything comes at some cost, so they have to deal with this arduous journey to get there. Gitch has joined them too, as he was really excited to show his knighthood. After a long journey, they are finally close to it. Montmorency notices something unusual, pointing out that the water level is really high, remembering that this place doesn't used to look like this. Furthermore, the establishments are submerged in the water too, so she asks them to wait a little while and wait for the water spirit to show itself. After the sun sets, Montmorency uses her familiar, who is a frog and is called Robin, to contact her old friend. The frog follows her order and dives deep into the water with a drop of her blood. She is hopeful that the spirit will recognize their contract and will come find her. She explains everything to Saito and tells him what they need to do after its arrival. Finally, she shows herself and recognizes the blood of Montmorency, although she rejects her request of giving off a part of her body. This is when our boy jumps in, getting on his knees and asking to do anything in return for this favor. There, Saito and the love-struck Louise are led to make contact with the powerful water spirit who has been flooding the land with wrath. She is searching for her stolen treasure and Vari's ring. Unfortunately, her search is being hindered by some pesky magic users. Without a second thought, Saito volunteers to deal with them. With Gitch by his side, the two of them fight the intruders. They devise a strategy to take these mages down. Gitch uses his earth magic to distract them, but they smartly take down his attack. Out of nowhere, Saito jumps in, launching a close attack on these mages, but he also gets knocked out by them. They are about to end Sato's life when Louise uses her magic to keep them away.
Saito?
This is the moment they discover to their surprise that they are none other than Kirch and Tabitha, a twist in the tale for everyone. Despite the shocking revelation, Saito promises to help the water spirit find her precious treasure. All they want is their treasure to be returned and they will stop their long-term plan of covering the whole planet in water. When asked about who took her treasure, the spirit replies that she only knows the name of a person involved in the theft, Cromwell. Saito promises her to bring back the given ring that grants life to artificial souls, although all of his friends are against it, as they feel like it is an impossible task for them. Irrespective of everything, Saito has already made up his mind, which impresses the water spirit. She believes the words of this peasant and grants him the rare ingredient, called the teardrop. She tells them that Gundolf has kept his promise in the distant past too, so she can trust Gundolf again. After that, the spirit promises to bring down the water level, which works for Tabitha too. Finally, the aura of love potion is ended, but here comes another trouble. Louise remembers everything she did and said during that time, making her feel embarrassed to the core. Louise is lashing out at him when someone jumps in from the window, and that person is Princess Tristain. Meanwhile, a secret plan is being devised to take down the kingdom, and the person leading the charge is Cromwell. We are going to witness a thriller in the near future. Late in the night, the princess sneaks into Louise's room. Louise gets shocked and impulsively inquires about the urgency which impelled the princess to sneak in this late. Princess discloses her decision to marry in Germania, as she has decided to sacrifice her love for the well-being of her country, and a relationship with a relatively stronger country will keep her people safe. Tristain is a small kingdom, which is always at risk of falling apart, so she plans on saving the kingdom by making a strong alliance with Germania, the land of superior nobles. Louise is really heartbroken to hear that, as she knows that this is equal to sacrificing one's life. The princess is not just here to give that news, rather she has something in her mind to retrieve an item. In this regard, Louise and Saito are given a new mission that could make or break their country's alliance. But there's a catch. An indiscreet letter that Henrietta wrote to Prince Wales of Albion must be brought back to the princess. If the contents of the letters are disclosed, it can result in a plain rejection of her marriage in Germania. Saito is unable to grasp these kingdoms' matters and the problem of marriage, due to which he faces being beaten by his master. There's a problem to this problem too. Albion is in a state of civil war because some nobles caused a coup d'etat, making the royal family fall from their reign, so the princess can't go there in person. She starts crying, putting her hope in the hands of her best friend and her slave boy. Louise tries to calm her down by telling her that she will be more than happy to do that task for him. Enters Gitch, who has overheard their conversation and volunteers to help Henrietta. She immediately accepts his offer, as he is the son of General Gaumont, which makes the duo jealous. Later, when Saito is busy with his routine job of washing the panties, Siesta walks up to him and apologizes for her rude behavior the other day. Ever since the spirit of water called him Gundolf, the words have been relentlessly echoing in his mind. Saito inquires from Siesta about someone who has detailed knowledge of history, and she takes Saito to Professor Colbert. Colbert explains that there were actually 5 kinds of magic, namely fire, earth, water, air, and void. The 5th missing part of the pentagon is void magic, which was the apex of legendary magic, and the person named Gundalf was a well-learned void mage and a familiar of legendary void mage. However, with no other void mage around, there is no information regarding Gundalf. Furthermore, he informs Saito that the runes on his hand are just like the runes of Gundalf, but he can't confirm it without the presence of some void mage user. Suddenly, he smells something weird in a flask, which is dragon blood and me. Colbert somehow got his hands on it and is now trying to replicate it. Louise is really nervous, questioning her ability to go through with this journey. She is not confident in her skills or magic, but Saito assures her that he will protect her at all costs. The next morning, Verdun, the familiar of Gitch, attacks Louise, trying to take off the princess ring from her hand. Suddenly, a gust of wind mixed with dirt takes this mole out, saving the lady. The guy lands from the sky wearing a fancy outfit, riding on a mythical creature as they escort for this journey Wards, captain of the Griffin Squadron. Shockingly, he's also Louise's fiancé. This revelation leaves Saito feeling jealous and uneasy, while Gitch is mesmerized that they are accompanied by the legendary elite mage. Meanwhile, swirling around the mountains, they reach the infamous port village of La Rochelle, which is crafted from a single boulder by talented square mages. Wards decides to spend a night in the village before they set off on the journey tomorrow. Here, Louise and Saito have an argument, which makes her really sad. At dinner, Wards curiously asks Saito about the rumors he heard about events from duel with Gitch to fighting Fauke. He goes on to challenge Saito for a practice duel, and the already jealous Saito accepts the challenge. To our surprise, there is an uninvited guest there too, also known as the Green Head. In the room, Wards proposes to Louise, who trembles at the proposal. She strives for some time, but Wards insists on marrying her at the earliest. Meanwhile, the sword tells Saito that he is actually Gundalf, and for the last 6,000 years it has only been used by Gundalf. No one else can operate it in the same way. The next morning, Saito battles it out with Wards but is no match for Wards, who easily bests him and mocks Sato's promise to protect Louise. Saito is heart-wrenched, crying badly while standing at a balcony. Louise tries to calm him down by telling him that he fought with the captain, so he doesn't need to cry over that, but Saito rather pushes Louise away in anger, telling her that he is just missing his home. On her way, Louise informs Saito that she has decided to marry Wards, which is nothing less than a shock for the already heartbroken boy. The unbothered-looking Saito can feel a sting of pain deep inside his heart at the revelation. Meanwhile, Saito and Gitch are caught up in a battle with Fauke and her golem, causing them to miss the ship, and conversely, Wards lies to Louise that both her friends opted to head back. Things are turning out to be fishy now. They are almost at the pier, where the ship is ready to be boarded and depart from here. Wards briefs Louise about the unrest in Albion. Owing to the civil war, the royal family has been forced out of the palace and the nobility controls most of the country. Prince Wales is the only hope of the royal family, as he is the last blood relation to the royal family. When Saito and Gitch appear to be losing against the giant golem, Kirch and Tabitha show up for their rescue, and after seeing the locals coming out for their rescue, Fauke runs out of sight, hinting that she only wanted to stall them and she has already succeeded in it. Once they drive off the golem, they try to look for the ship. A gentleman at the pier tells them that the couple went together alone, claiming that their other companions have gone back to the school. This creates a sense of frustration in Saito, and he rushes outside to get on the ship. But it is late because the ship has already sailed, and they can see the ship sailing above them. Saito gets surprised to see a flying ship, so they tell him that Albion is a free-floating country. I believe this naive earthly boy will be able to get that. Gitch maintains that they have been left off and Louise and her fiancé have moved on with the mission. Deep down, Louise is not pleased with her marriage with Wards, but there is nothing much she can do. Being a noble, he is Louise's best option. Meanwhile, Saito is suspicious that they have been played, joining the dots that Wards and Fauke might be accomplices, which means Louise is in trouble. To their luck, the next ship will sail the next morning. Wards tries to get out the information about the hideout of Prince, but smart Louise tells him that she has made a promise to Princess, so she is not going to reveal that. They finally reach the free-floating land of Albion and head into the palace. As soon as they enter the palace, Louise and Wards are stranded by the guards from all sides. The prince identifies Louise with the ring on her hand, showcasing his ring in the process too. He asks her to join hands with him, and as soon as she does this, everything glows up. These are the rings that have been passed down since generations. The ruby of water and air, when mixed together, gives up a rainbow-like hue. After the due diligence, she gives him the letter from the princess, and he hands over the secret letter to Louise. True allegiance is also exposed, as he sides with Reconquista, a group responsible for the unrest in Albion. Though its motives are not confined to Albion only, they desire to extend their influence on a much larger scale. Wards attempts to force Louise into a marriage ceremony that would legitimize his position within the group. Louise is powerless to resist when Ward's ally, Cromwell, uses mind control to force her into compliance. Just as we thought, everything falls into pieces and we have our criminals. Wards is a part of this organization too, including Cromwell. This is the moment when it is revealed that Louise is a descendant of legendary Void Mage, which explains the reason behind her having zero elemental magic. Just when it seems all hope is lost, and she was about to say yes to this forceful marriage, Saito bursts into the church and unleashes his true power as Gundalf to save Louise. In the chaos that follows, Wards eliminates Prince Wales, and on top of that, he has managed to steal the letter. The church crumbles around them, but Tabitha and the others arrive just in time to rescue Louise and Saito. As they make their escape, Saito holds Louise in his arms and shares a passionate kiss, finally confessing his love for her. In a shocking turn of events, Louise delivers the devastating news of Princess Henrietta of Wales passing, resulting in the cancellation of her wedding. Gutted by the failure, Louise apologizes to Henrietta for not producing the letter she desired. With teary eyes, the princess hugs her friend and thanks her for bringing the last belongings of her lover. Amidst the turmoil and uncertainty, Louise confides in Osmond about the impending threat of the Reconquista, an ominous force that's been looming on the horizon. Osmond realizes the existing danger and thanks her for reporting it timely. Louise remembers that she was often referred to as the descendant of the Void, and probes Osmond what it means. To Louise's surprise, Osmond unveils the existence of Void magic and the mythical creature known as Gundalf. However, tensions quickly rise as another argument with Saito takes place. She is thinking about the kiss and the normal behavior of Saito, as if nothing has happened. In all this ruckus, the elastic of Louise's panty tears and the panty slides down her thighs, which embarrasses her. Louise uses her whip to punish her familiar for not taking care of the belongings. Saito is fed up with bearing this nonsense, so he walks out of there in anger. He goes near the huge pot by the wall to take out his frustration. He is having second thoughts about kissing Louise the other night. Right then, Siesta arrives there and breaks the news of heading back to her hometown. Saito asks her about the story of her great-grandfather, who was also from another world. She narrates the story of two dragons that emerged in the sky. One of the dragons was carrying her great-grandfather, who used to assert that he came to this world on the dragon. She tells him that it became a family heirloom and has been kept safe somewhere in the hometown, but she has never seen it. Saito asks Siesta to take him to her home, the village of Taubes. It looks like he has something in his mind, especially after remembering the blood of the dragon, which looked more like the fuel of an engine. I guess all of you have the same thing in the mind. Kirch, Tabitha, and Gitch were eavesdropping on their conversations and they decide to follow them to the village to find the dragon, along with some treasure. While looking for Saito, Louise comes across the specific point where she first summoned her familiar. She is losing her mind over the moments she has spent with Saito over the period. Suddenly, she notices that Saito is leaving out of the gate with Siesta on a horse. She gets jealous and heads to the head chef, who informs Louise about the sudden departure of Siesta to her home. Louise quickly inferences that Saito must have accompanied her and she decides to head to the village with Professor Colbert, who is also heading to the same village in search of the dragon. Saito and Siesta navigate through treacherous terrain and unexpected obstacles, making their way to the much-anticipated village. Siesta heads to her home to find out the exact location of the enshrined heirloom and the treasure, while Saito decides to wait on the outskirts of the village. He feels so happy and comfortable with her, and that can be seen from the glow on his face. He just can't get over her kindness and ethics. She finally comes back with a map, which she secretly brought out from the shed. She informs him that it is known as Robe of the Dragon, and her great-grandfather used this land here. They are focused on the task when a sudden interruption from Kirch scares them. Well, she is not alone, as she has also brought Gitch and Tabitha too. They make their way to the cave marked on the map. Walking the pitch-dark cave, they comb for the dragon with their hidden objectives. Suddenly, they hear footsteps, which alerts them and they warn each other of the danger. No surprise, this is Mr. Colbert, who is also there to find out about the dragon. The teacher briefs all of them about his mission, while Louise and Saito are busy fighting. Interestingly, the tunnel opens on the flip side of the cave, where a shabby-looking house is situated. The epitaph etched on its surface reveals a startling truth. The dragon they've been seeking is none other than a Japanese aircraft from World War II, piloted by Siesta's great-grandfather who had been transported to Halkaginia during the solar eclipse. Sato's heart gets heavy to find his mother language on the stone. This is the first thing in this world that took him back to his country. After taking a closer look, our boy is certain that it is from his world. He is now sure that Siesta also belongs to the Japanese background. Professor Colbert asserts that if this aircraft brought her grandfather to this world during the eclipse, maybe it can take Saito back to his world during the coming solar eclipse. The fear of losing Saito engulfs Louise as she hears their speculations. On the other hand, for the first time Saito is optimistic about finding his way back to his home. Although, these are all assumptions, but this is his best chance to return to his world. In the palace, there is sadness all around as the engagement has been called off and the contents of the letter has been made public. The royal family has accepted their destiny. Albion announces war on Tristain as they return the plane to the school. Saito gets on the plane after requesting Mr. Colbert to develop more gasoline. Meanwhile, the Albion has launched their plan, and they want to use Tristain as a springboard to conquer the remainder of the continent, and will begin their assault in 3 days during the following solar eclipse. Saito informs Louise regarding his plan to travel back home in 3 days, as the solar eclipse will happen in 3 days. He was expecting Louise to express her feelings. Instead, Louise coldly replies that it's his choice, acting as if she does not care about his decision. This shatters his heart, as he wanted her support in this case. In fact, Louise acted strongly to hide her feelings. Louise's callous reaction left a dent in Sato's heart, and it seems like their relationship may be irreparably broken. In the palace, the nobles plan for the upcoming battle. Most of them opine that they don't stand a chance against Albion. The princess rebukes them for acting covered. Henrietta maintains that surrender is not an option and she will lead the attack himself. In the institute, Osmond gathers up students to inform them about the coming war and encourages them to participate, as the school will be closed for an unforeseeable future. This sends waves of shocks across the room, leaving the young lads in fear. Adding to the grim reality of their situation, the war between Albion and Tristain seems inevitable, so Henrietta must call upon the boys at the academy to join her army. Amidst the chaos of preparation, Louise stumbles upon Saito sleeping and decides to say her goodbyes. The next morning, Saito wakes up to find a letter from Louise rudely stating that he is fired and she doesn't care where he goes. This worries Saito, and he abruptly gets up to find her. He consults Kirch, who believes that she must be in the palace with Princess Henrietta. Saito is in a dilemma, trying to figure out if this world is worthy of him. He believes that there is no reason for him to take part in this battle because he doesn't belong from this world, and he should prioritize leaving from here as soon as possible. However, the memories of his time with Louise are making him question his conscience. The day has finally arrived, starting with the arrival of airborne ships from Albion. Meanwhile, Saito is preparing the aircraft after getting 4-5 tanks of gasoline from Mr. Colbert. As the war begins, Saito takes to the skies in his lightning-fast Zero fighter while Louise joins the princess's army. The two sides clash in a fierce battle. The fight is heavily dominated by Albion, and it appears that Tristan is on the verge of a humiliated loss at the hands of Albion. But the balance quickly turns on Tristan's side when Saito enters the battle on his fighter jet. He maneuvers the jet with such precision that it is almost impossible for the opponents to anticipate his moves. The precise bullet shot eliminates one dragon after the other. In the matchup against Wards, Saito finds himself stranded with no bullets to defend himself, but with unforeseen determination and the magic sword by his side, he takes on Wards. The battle is getting intense between them in the air and on ground. Fauke is causing trouble using the golem. Kirch, Tabitha and Gitch mix up their attack to create a combined force attack. The alchemy works on the golem, making it turn into sand. Louise finally makes an emotional connection with Saito and unlocks her true potential. The runes in Sato's hand start to wake her up. The sword orders Gundalf to buy her some time because void magic needs some time. Finally, the moment arrives, unleashing a powerful spell known as Explosion that decimates Albion's aerial force in a single blow. Sadly, the solar eclipse has passed, ending the hope of returning for Saito. The trio gets successful in taking out the Cromwell Bastard too, recovering the legendary ring. Amidst the jubilation of their victory, the anime ends with their passionate kiss. With this, Saito and Louise form a new bond. Things take a turn for good for everyone, and everyone's back to their normal life. Saito also accepts this place as his home for now, as he has no hope left of returning home for now. That concludes the anime recap. As always, if you'd like me to continue the series, let me know down below and I'm out.